Але і залежить від його років. Він помре скоро, це факт, і все закінчиться. Тобто його питання він може закінчити до того, як він, скажімо так, закінчить своє абсолютно безпечне і невдале історичне життя.
This is my video update on this Thursday afternoon, March the 27th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Zelensky's new victory plan. That's right, he has a new victory plan. He talked about it during an interview that he gave yesterday as he was in Paris, France, attending Macron's coalition of the Willing Summit. Little Napoleon is putting together a coalition of the Willing Summit, which takes place today. A coalition of the unwilling losers, but Macron has invited collective West leaders to this summit, including the Green Goblin, so that they can get together and talk about Project Ukraine. What to do about Project Ukraine now that the United States of America and the Russian Federation are in bilateral talks. Europe, Macron, the collective West, the Green Goblin, they're very worried what to do with Project Ukraine, how to defeat Russia. What do we do? So Zelensky, before attending the conference, he gave various interviews in France. And during one interview, he laid out the latest victory plan, the strategy to defeat Russia. And the strategy is that Putin will die. That's the strategy. Putin will die soon. That's a fact. And then it will all be over, according to Zelensky. You know, Kellogg, I think it was Kellogg, in his Ukraine plan in April of 2024, he talked about how the collective West, all they need to do is wait 10 to 20 years for Putin to exit the scene, and then Ukraine can enter NATO. I believe this was Kellogg's plan. Maybe it was someone else's plan, not sure. But it was a plan about 6 months ago that was floated out there. And this plan said that there will be a freeze along the current front lines, a Korea type of freeze. There would be a demilitarized zone created with European troops policing this demilitarized zone. And the collective West would tell Russia that Ukraine is not going to get into NATO for 10 to 20 years until Putin exits. And then when Putin exits, then we'll talk about Ukraine getting into NATO. That was the plan that was floating around 6 months ago, and I do believe that was the plan that Kellogg penned. But anyway, this plan has been out there, waiting Putin out. This is nothing new, but Zelensky is bringing this up again. Obviously, Zelensky is not reading Medvedev's posts on X. Obviously, he is not keeping up with what Medvedev is saying about the conflict in Ukraine and Project Ukraine. Because if Putin were to exit, you might get a Medvedev, and then Ukraine and the collective West, NATO, would be in all kinds of trouble. So Zelensky said it is very important that America does not help Putin get out of this global isolation now, Zelensky said during a visit to Paris. I believe that this is dangerous. This is one of the most dangerous moments. Is Putin isolated, or is Zelensky and the EU isolated? I think Zelensky and the EU are isolated. Putin and Russia, not so isolated. Anyway, Zelensky said Putin hopes to remain in power until his death, Zelensky said, and his ambitions are not limited to Ukraine, but could lead to a direct confrontation with the West. Zelensky urged the US and Europe to remain united in pressuring Putin. The Russian leader fears the European-American alliance and hopes to divide it. Putin also fears his own mortality, Zelensky added. He will die soon. That is a fact. And everything will be over. Everything will be over. He's talking about Project Ukraine, right? Or is he talking about everything? Like everything? That would suck if everything is over. So that's what Zelensky said. Everything will be over. Oh boy. Putin, he fears a European-American alliance. He also fears his own mortality. Putin fears a lot of stuff, man. How does Zelensky know all of this? Don't know. Don't care. He just knows. He just knows. Mr. Journalist reporter. You see, Putin, he fears America-Europe alliance. Podolyak, is that right? Yes, Mr. President. Putin fears this very much. Yes, you see, Podolyak say Putin fears this. He fears European-American alliance. You know what else Putin fears, Mr. Reporter? Putin fears his own mortality? Yes, mortality. Putin fears this also. You know what else Putin fears, Mr. Reporter? He fears heights. He does not like standing on top of very tall buildings. You know what else Putin fears, Mr. Reporter? Reporter's like, oh my God, get this guy out of the studio. He fears little, what do you call these things? Podolyak, what are these things? Spiders, Mr. President. Yes, he fears spiders. He does not like these things. Zelensky, he knows what Putin fears. He knows exactly the fears of the Russian president. And once he goes, everything will be over. Like Thanos, snap of the finger, everything is over. Oh boy. What else did Zelensky say during this interview? Oh, Zelensky, he talked about Witkoff. Yeah, he talked about Witkoff, and he made fun of Witkoff. He made fun of Witkoff, and he made fun of Russia in one statement. Witkoff comments very disturbing to Ukraine, Zelensky says. What did the Green Goblin say in this statement? Let's see what he said about Witkoff and Russia. Here we go. Witkoff's statements, is a quote from Zelensky. Witkoff's statements are very disturbing to us. He's talking about the Tucker Carlson-Witkoff interview, where Witkoff said that Putin is very smart and he likes Putin and he's very smart. And then Tucker said he's not only very smart, he's super smart. And then Witkoff said, yeah, he's super smart. And this really, really bothered Zelensky. This really freaking bothered Zelensky, this statement from Witkoff and from Tucker, saying that Putin is smart, that they like Putin and he's smart. I'm smart. I'm smart. I'm telling you, I am smart. Hey, Podolyak, you are the smartest, Mr. President. There's no one smarter than you. Tell that to Witkoff. So Witkoff's statements are very disturbing to us, Zelensky said, because we are fighting Putin and we really do not want him to have many assistants. This is definitely difficult for us because we are already fighting a country that is 40 times larger in terms of territory, smaller in terms of dignity. He also said Witkoff may be susceptible to certain Russian narratives. He is not a military expert, Zelensky noted. As far as I know, he is very good at selling and buying real estate. What does he know about the military? What does he know about negotiations? As far as I know, he just sells real estate. Double burn on Witkoff. Burn on Russia, burn on Witkoff, Zelensky. Zelensky is a verbal assassin. He's losing it, man. With each passing day, it's getting worse and worse. For the mental state of the Green Goblin is getting worse and worse, man. Podolyak, he's your little buddy. You got to save him. Save him. Save him. He's going mad. He is going freaking mad. Oh boy. So the Paris summit, Macron's Paris summit, he announced that he's going to be giving Ukraine 2 billion euros in the form of military assistance. All right. Little Napoleon. He is doing whatever it takes to keep the war going. He gave Zelensky a big old hug, Macron, when he greeted the Green Goblin. A big old hug. Getting a whiff of that Zelensky number 5. They do talk every day, right? According to Zelensky, little Napoleon calls him up every single day. Remember that phone call when he was speaking to journalists? And he interrupted that press conference because allegedly Macron was calling him. And then Zelensky went on to say that Macron calls him pretty much every single day. So yeah, Macron was very happy to see Zelensky. They talk every single day. Zelensky travels to Paris whenever he can so they can hang out. I don't know. I think it's time for Candace Owens to maybe do a video series on Zelensky and Macron, kind of like the becoming Bridget thing that she did. Maybe it's time for Candace Owens to do becoming the Green Goblin. So the European Union, the Collective West, the European Union, at this summit, they said that they will not accommodate the United States with the Black Sea ceasefire agreement, and the EU will not connect Russian banks and institutions to any kind of payment systems. They won't lift any sanctions, none of that stuff. That is what the EU said in a statement from this conference. Rubio, he said that the EU has to do something because this Black Sea ceasefire agreement, it doesn't work unless Europe lifts some of the sanctions against the Russian Agricultural Bank and other institutions. So Rubio is telling the Europeans, you guys have got to lift these sanctions. You guys have to look at SWIFT. Otherwise, this ceasefire is a non-starter, the Black Sea ceasefire. So that was what Rubio told reporters. And Trump, he actually told the media yesterday that the U.S. is looking over all of the institutions that Russia needs to have connected to banks and to SWIFT. And they're looking everything over, and he said that they're going to see what they need to do, because there's no other way to make the ceasefire work. The U.S. is looking for proper way to reconnect Russia to SWIFT. This is according to the Treasury Secretary. Moscow has asked Washington to ease its sanctions as a step towards settling the Ukraine conflict. Yeah, they need to get the Europeans on board. And the Europeans came out today and they said, no, we're not going to do it. The Europeans are actually very angry with Trump and the United States. They're very angry. Who is he to negotiate with Putin on lifting sanctions and connecting banks and SWIFT and all of that stuff? The Europeans said that this is for them to deal with. They're very upset with Trump, and so they're not going to play ball with the Black Sea ceasefire agreement. So Trump is going to have to do something. He's going to have to figure this out. The Europeans are also very worried about the discussions around Nord Stream. This is according to Politico. Russia and the US discuss restarting Nord Stream pipelines. EU countries are against reviving the ruptured gas links, which experts say will also prove legally difficult, even if there's an American buyout. This is the first article that I've seen from a Collective West outlet, which actually talks about Nord Stream, the actual infrastructure being bought by American investors, and Russia selling the gas to this group of American investors, and then Europe buying the gas as American gas. The first article that I've seen actually talk about this. And in the article, they talk about how this would be legally, it would be very difficult. It would also be very difficult to get this through the European Union, through Germany, with various regulations and stuff like that. And most likely this is not going to happen, but the article talked about American investors buying the pipeline, buying the infrastructure. The article says that it's not going to be hard to fix up the other three pipelines. The one pipeline works. It's not going to be hard to fix up the other three pipelines. And then Russia would sell the gas to this American group. And then Europe would be buying the gas, and it would be American gas, right? It would be a purchase of gas from the United States. And it would be priced in such a way that it would be a little bit cheaper than LNG, but a lot more expensive than pipeline gas to Europe. Much more expensive than say Turkstream, but just a little bit cheaper than the LNG that Germany, the European Union, is currently buying from Russia, the United States, or Qatar. So the Europeans, they're very worried about these discussions revolving around Nord Stream. Trump's deal with Putin faces European reality check. Top leaders meeting in Paris want to show the US and Russia can't carve up the continent by cutting out the EU and Ukraine. They're very worried. Very, very worried about the bilateral talks between Russia and the US. And so they're going to do whatever they feel they have to do in order to try and sabotage those talks. And the one thing that they are doing right now is that they are saying no connection to SWIFT, no connection to banks, no lifting of any sanctions. How are you going to get a ceasefire in the Black Sea if we do not connect the Russian institutions to various banks? Well, I think the United States is going to have to either use some sticks in order to convince the Europeans to go along with the ceasefire agreement, or the other thing that the Trump White House can do, which is what I would recommend, is to call up Putin and to tell Russia, look, the ceasefire, it's not going to work because the Europeans are being a pain in the you-know-what. And why don't we just talk about other stuff, normalize our bilateral relations. We have a whole lot of other things that we need to discuss. You guys do what you're doing in Ukraine. We'll stop the weapons and the money to the Green Goblin, and we'll just leave it there and let the Europeans deal with it. So that's what I would recommend Trump do, but he's not going to do that. We know that he's not going to do that. He's going to try to figure out a way to pressure the Europeans to agree to the ceasefire, the Black Sea ceasefire deal. It was during the grain deal that Europe refused to connect the one Russian agricultural bank. The grain deal that was agreed on 2 years ago, that thing fell apart for two reasons. Reason number one was that weapons were getting delivered to the port in Odessa. They were getting smuggled into the port in Odessa because Turkey was not doing a very good job of monitoring the shipments that were entering the Odessa port, go figure. And the other reason that it fell apart was because one of the conditions of the grain deal was that Europe would connect the Russian agricultural bank to their systems. And Europe never did it. The EU refused to do it. And so Russia eventually said, okay, well, we're out. We're out of this grain deal. Actually, the grain deal was renewing I believe it was every 60 days or every 90 days. And so when the 60 or 90 days expired, Russia just said, okay, we're not renewing this anymore. They didn't have to cancel anything. They just did not renew it. And that was it. And the grain deal fell apart. So we're kind of in the same situation. But this time we have a Trump administration which is wanting to normalize relations with Russia. And they're going to have to put pressure on the Europeans. Or walk away. Just walk away, man. It's another great excuse, a great reason to just walk away and dump it all on the EU. So let's do a clown world and we'll wrap today's video up. And we are going to revisit the Signal chat scandal, which has now taken on the name of Signalgate. Signalgate, that is what it is being called. And Waltz was speaking to Laura Ingraham on Fox News. So some damage control by sending Waltz to Ingraham, very friendly interviewer on Fox News. And it did not turn out well for Mike Waltz. This was not a good idea. Even with Laura Ingraham there, very friendly interview, Fox News. For the most part, friendly to Trump, at least friendly to the neocon side of the Trump administration. They couldn't save Mike Waltz. He was trying to explain what happened by having Goldberg in this chat group on Signal, and he couldn't explain it, man. He said, look, I take full responsibility. But Laura Ingraham, she was saying, okay, that's fine. You take full responsibility. But how did this happen? How did Goldberg get in this chat group? And Mike Waltz, he couldn't explain it. He could not freaking explain it. He got to the point where during this interview, Waltz said that Goldberg just kind of got sucked into the group chat. He just kind of got sucked into it. But you've never talked to him before. So how is the number on your phone? That is what Ingraham asked. And Waltz's reply was, it just gets sucked in. It gets sucked in. You know, those contacts, he just kind of gets sucked in. He did mention stuff about a staffer. So maybe a staffer had the name in there and added the name. I don't know. Blame it on a staffer, I guess. When all is said and done, you can always blame it on a staffer. You could fire a staffer. You know, I mean, I guess that's one way to resolve this. But yeah, just get Waltz to just not talk anymore. Just tell Waltz, no more talking. Leave this to Levitt. Just let Levitt do her thing, and Waltz, no more interviews. Don't say anything, and hopefully this will be forgotten in a couple of weeks, maybe. Maybe this will be forgotten in a couple of weeks, but the media is not letting this go. And they're focusing on all the wrong things. It is an interesting question to ask, how did Goldberg get into this chat group? Okay, that's interesting to ponder, how to figure that out. How did this happen? But the main thing that everyone should be asking, in my opinion, after reading these messages, and by the way, the full chat has been released. The main thing that everyone should be asking, especially if you're a U.S. citizen, is one question, and only one. Are we at war with Yemen? That's it. Are we at war with Yemen? Mr. President, please reply. Respond. Are we at war with Yemen? Because when you read this chat, it seems as if the United States is at war with Yemen, right? That's how it looks. That is exactly how it looks. I don't think there's any secrets that were divulged or talked about in the messaging. Everyone's saying that this was some national security threat or stuff like that. Classified information was talked about, targeting and all of these things. I don't think that was the case, though. I guess you could argue it, but the bigger question when you read what everyone was saying is are we at war with Yemen? Because they're talking about just hitting apartment buildings, taking out generals, taking out military officials and civilians as well, who are around these military officials. I believe one of the messages talks about either a general or a very high-level military official in Yemen went to visit his girlfriend, a residential apartment building, and they took out the apartment building, and that would mean a lot of civilians also died in this attack. But you're also going after a military official, which is also an act of war. I think this is the most basic question that needs to be asked. And I think the Trump White House needs to provide an answer. Because it sure seems like the United States is at war with Yemen. Definitely what they are doing is an act of war. I don't even know if this is a clown world, to be quite honest. But getting back to Mike Waltz, what I think happened, this is my best guess, is that going back to the topic of how did Goldberg end up in this chat, my guess is that Mike Waltz or his staff, and this is just a guess, Mike Waltz and or his staff, they were cultivating Goldberg and other neocon publications, and they were giving them access to the plans for Yemen. And that's how he ended up in the chat, either by accident or intentionally. Because what could have happened, my best guess, is that the neocon faction of the Trump administration, they're pushing for war with Yemen so that they can eventually get to war with Iran. So what they need is they need some buy-in from the American people, right? They need the American people to go along with the attacks on Yemen. If you can get the American people to go along with the United States attacking Yemen, then you're very close to getting buy-in from the American people for an all-out war with Iran. And so the neocon faction of the Trump administration, my guess would be that they gave certain neocon publications, like The Atlantic, possibly other publications as well, they gave them information and access so that they can help them push the conflict with Yemen forward. And that's how Goldberg ended up in this list. That would be my guess. That's what they mean when journalists, when the media talks about access, they never want to lose their access. That's the biggest fear of journalists, is if they don't play along with the powers that be, then they're going to lose their access to the decision makers. That's what we're talking about here. The decision makers, they want a conflict with Iran. Yemen is a stepping stone to that conflict with Iran, but they need to get the message out to the American people, so they're going to need the media's help. So you give special access to various neocon publications that are aligned with the goal of of conflict with Yemen for eventual conflict with Iran. And that's how you get a list of these types of people. And one of them ends up in this chat. And it could have been from Waltz. It could have been from one of his staffers that was working with Goldberg. This, I don't know, but that's my guess as to what happened. That's how he got in this chat group.
So your staffer did not put his contact information.
No,
but how did it end up in your phone?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, but that's a pretty big problem.
That's what we've got the best technical minds, right?
That's disturbing.
And that's where, I mean, I'm sure everybody out there has had a contact where it was said one person and then a different phone number.
But you've never talked to him before, so how's the number on your phone? I mean, I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's just curious. How's the number on your phone?
Well, if you have somebody else's contact and then then somehow it gets sucked in.
someone sent you that
it gets sucked in.
Was there someone else supposed to be on the chat that wasn't on the chat that you thought was on the chat?
So the person that I thought was on there was never on there. It was this guy.
Who was that? What person?
Well, I'm not. Look, okay. Laura, I take responsibility. I built the group.
So do I have any more clown worlds? Let's see here. Let's see if I have another clown world here. From the Daily Star. Is this the most dangerous man in the world? And it has a picture of J.D. Vance with a cap, a dunce cap. J.D. Dunce hates Britain, hates Europe, and hates Ukraine, and could be U.S. president at any moment. Right, so they're all bothered about the Signal chat with J.D. Vance basically talking about what losers the Europeans are, how he can't stand the Europeans, and this has bothered the Daily Star. So they're saying that J.D. Vance is the most dangerous man in the world. And they even have a nickname for him. They don't call him J.D. Vance. They call him J.D. Dunce. I don't know. It's not a very good nickname. Not a good nickname at all. Now, the Green Goblin, that's a good nickname. Daily Star, that's a good nickname. Annalena 360, that's a good nickname. The Zelensky Curse, that's good. That's good, yes. Stunning and Brave, 008, Stommer, or Keir Stormer, as Lukashenko called him. J.D. Dunce, nah, not so good. You can do better, Daily Star. Come on, you can do better. All right, we will end the video there. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I'm wearing in this video update. The link is in the description box down below. Take care.